Everyone, and welcome back to the second session of applying for permanent residency in Canada. If you missed the first one, I encourage you to go back and locate it on HIPC's Newcomer Week event page and give it a watch. There's going to be some great information in there that'll be beneficial to understanding this session. But don't worry, if you don't have time, I'm going to do a quick review at the beginning. So in case you don't know, let me introduce myself. My name is Haley Cuthbertson, and I'm a master's candidate at Ryerson University in the Immigration and Settlement Program. I'm also currently completing a placement with HIPC, who has facilitated Newcomer Week and made these seminars possible. So thank you for joining me today, and let's get started. I want to begin with taking you briefly through the agenda for the second session. Unlike the first session, it's going to be more dynamic, and I'll be showing different websites and resources related to applying for permanent residency. So please bear with me while I navigate technology, recording, and trying to impart some useful tips on applying for permanent residency. So first, I'm going to review the objective of this presentation, which I originally stated in the first session. Then I'm going to do a brief review of our first session just to catch anyone up who may have missed it. After that, I'm going to take you through how to determine which PR stream that you're most eligible to apply for and provide you with a starting point if you're unsure on how to start your research on different streams. Then we're going to move on to talk a little bit more in depth about eligibility and introduce the concept of inadmissibility. Both of these concepts are really important to understanding applying for permanent residency. After that, we're just going to review some tips and tricks for completing your applications. And finally, we're going to end with discussing different immigration professionals in Canada and how to ensure that you obtain the right representation for your case. So the collective objective of the two sessions I've presented today is to serve as an educational workshop to help provide knowledge about Canada's immigration system and the process of applying for permanent residency. So I want to begin by doing a brief review from the first session of who are permanent residents and what are the three classes of applications for permanent residency. So permanent residents are individuals who have applied to come to Canada on a permanent basis. So generally, applicants for permanent residency have applied to come over on a permanent resident visa from outside of Canada, but there are a few exceptions. So there are three classes of applications for permanent residency. The first class is family class. Family class applicants are sponsored by a relative who is already a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. Then we have refugees or persons in need of protection. Refugees are individuals fleeing persecution, where protected persons are individuals who are at risk of death, torture, or other cruel or unusual treatment if they are to return home. Finally, we have the economic class. Economic class applicants are individuals who have skills and resources that will enable them to contribute to the Canadian economy. So before we move on to how to apply for permanent residency, we first need to understand the term eligibility. Eligibility involves determining whether an applicant in a particular class or category meets the definition or legislative requirements for that particular class or category of applicants. But simply put, it means whether or not you fit the criteria to be able to come over under that class. So this is a very important step of applications and definitely one that you want to make sure you take your time on. So if you're unsure about your eligibility or what class is right for you, I have here a really great tool to help you determine which permanent residency stream is best for you. So I'm going to take a minute or two to walk you guys through this tool that I found on the Canadian government's website and how to use it to best start your journey on applying to permanent residency. So now that we've clicked on the link, it's brought us to the Government of Canada website under the Immigration and Citizenship tab. So this is the tool that I was talking about previously, which is going to help us check our eligibility for permanent resident classes. It's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to complete the form. However, we're not going to take that long. It's going to ask us questions based on a variety of different factors, and these factors are going to determine our eligibility. Now, remember about what we talked about a little while ago. Eligibility is extremely important to having a successful application. So if you're filling this out yourself, you want to make sure that the information you're providing is as accurate as possible. So we're going to begin and check our eligibility. So we're going to click on this link here, and it's going to bring us to this really great tool where it's going to tell us what we're eligible to apply for. So I'm going to make up the information here. But once again, as I said, if you're doing it for yourself, make sure it's as accurate as possible. we finally reached the end, and here's our results. So once again, it's telling us that the express entry is what we're most eligible to apply for. What's also really great is it gives us this reference code that it says to apply online, we're going to need. So make sure that you're jotting this down if you're planning on using this information later. It also gives us all the different steps that we need to do to start our journey on applying for permanent residency. So make sure you read these through carefully because that's how you're going to get started on your journey to becoming a Canadian permanent resident. Now that we've completed the eligibility tool, we should have a better understanding of what streams of permanent residency that we're eligible to apply under, and that should help direct us when we go to fill out our applications. However, there is one more term that we do need to discuss before we're there. That term is inadmissibility. So inadmissibility is as important to pay attention to as eligibility, which we've been talking about previously. Inadmissibility involves the reason for which any application may be refused or for which an individual without citizenship may be removed from Canada. So what this means is even though you meet all the eligibility criteria to apply for permanent residency to Canada, if you fit an inadmissibility criteria, you cannot apply. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at what inadmissibility means. So once again, it's brought us to the Government of Canada's website because at the end of the day, this is where you're going to get your most reliable information. So reasons you may be inadmissible to Canada. So some of these reasons are a little bit more extreme and other ones may be ones that you don't think about. But for example, you could be inadmissible for security reasons such as espionage, for human or international right violations such as war crimes, but also for things that would seem more common such as medical reasons that endanger public health or endanger public safety, or that you could use an excessive demand on health or social services. So if you think that you may fall into one of these criteria that make you inadmissible, please make sure you consult an immigration professional to see how best to go about your application. What I do want to draw our attention to quickly before we leave this page is misrepresentation. So misrepresentation is an interesting term because essentially it means whether or not information on your application was correct. So whether intentional or not, if you misrepresent yourself or provide false information on an application, it could lead to that application being thrown out and you not being eligible to apply for permanent residency in Canada. So as I've said before, and I'll probably continue to say throughout this presentation, is we really want to make sure we're presenting all of the correct information to the IRCC when we're applying for permanent residency. So we've completed the eligibility tool on the Government of Canada website. So now we've determined what streams of permanent residency were best suited to apply under. We've checked to make sure that we don't fit any of the criteria that would make us inadmissible according to the IRCC. So that means we can move ahead with our application. So we're eligible. It's time to fill out our application. I'm going to navigate away from the presentation again to show you a really great resource to get you started on filling out an application. So I'm going to click on this link. So we've been redirected to YouTube and onto the Citizenship and Immigration Canada page. This page is a great resource because it has a lot of different videos all about permanent residency, applications, and immigration to Canada in general. I really encourage that people use this page to gather more information, especially if in their process of applying for permanent residency. What's also a really great feature about YouTube is it allows you to close caption videos, but most importantly, it allows you to do it in whichever language suits you best. So in order to be able to change your closed caption, you want to click on the CC at the bottom. You're going to go up to subtitles. You're going to click on subtitles, and then you're going to go down to auto translate. So what this means is that it will auto translate in a variety of different languages to make it more accessible to you as the user. So for example, right now, let's just say we're going to use Burmese. So if we click on that and then we play the video quickly.
Hi, my name is David and I work.
You can see that David's introduction is now written at the bottom of the screen in Burmese. This video is one I selected because it has to do with the basics of filling out forms for Immigration and Citizenship Canada. It's great because it gives you helpful tips and tools to be able to fill out your forms correctly and avoid some of the common mistakes that people make. I'm not going to play this video just because it is quite lengthy. However, I do encourage you later to go on and find it on YouTube to be able to go through and see all of the different tips and tricks that they're recommending. Now that we reviewed the IRCC's YouTube channel and video about how to fill out your applications, I'm going to briefly show you a generic permanent residency application and where to find one on the internet. This way, when you go to locate your own, you can be sure that you're getting the correct form every time. Having the right form is extremely important. Ensuring that you're providing the proper documentation to the IRCC with your application can save you years on an application. Some of the most common errors that individuals make when applying for permanent residency is sending in incorrect documents, which could take months or years to sort out. Additionally, when consulting immigration professionals for this presentation, they cited one other common error that I want to point out to everybody today. So what you see on the screen before you is a generic reply to a visa application to the IRCC. What I want to draw your attention to is this bottom line here that says, please do not reply to this email. A common mistake many people make is responding to emails that go to an automated inbox. This means that that inbox is not monitored by any immigration professional, and any information you send there will be lost. So please ensure when you're replying to IRCC information, you're replying to an email account that does not specify, please do not reply, and go straight to an immigration professional. So now we talked about some of the common mistakes people make when applying for permanent residency. I want to show you guys how to find an application form online and the guides to be able to fill it out properly. So once again, we're going to go to the Government of Canada website and we're going to go to Immigration and Citizenship. This is then going to direct us to the main Immigration and Citizenship page, and then we're going to go down to Immigrate. Under Immigrate, you're going to see a list of a whole bunch of different options as to how to apply for permanent residency in Canada. So based on that eligibility test you took before, you're going to want to select the category that applies to you most. So once you've done that, it's going to prompt you to create an online portal, because that's where all of your information is going to be stored for when you're applying for permanent residency. This web page is great because it not only tells you how to apply online, but also it shows you different instruction guides on how to fill out applications based on what your criteria is. So let's say, for example, we're applying under a provincial nominee program. We press continue. It's going to bring up the instruction guide for the different application process for a provincial nominee. What this is going to do is it's going to redirect us to a page that's going to tell you all of the information that you need to be able to apply properly for permanent residency. Please make sure you read this thoroughly because it has a lot of small details that could hold up your application if not done properly. So you want to read through this entire package before you fill out your application and submit it. Once you've done that, feel free to get started on that online portal we briefly mentioned before. This brings us to our final item on the agenda for this session, immigration professionals and how to choose one that is right for you. There are a variety of different individuals in Ontario that are qualified to represent you in your immigration journey. My intention here is to briefly introduce you to the most common practitioners found in Ontario and how to ensure that you're finding not only a professional that suits your needs and budget, but also one that is legally permitted to represent you in front of a variety of different government bodies. Please note that you're not required to hire anyone to represent you. However, this is useful information if you are considering it. So we're going to consult the Government of Canada's website to learn about representatives and what they can do for you. It lists a bunch of different tasks that individuals can do, but most importantly, it lists who can be a representative. So as you can see here, it's anybody from an immigration consultant to a lawyer to friends, family members, or other third parties. So really, you want to make sure you're choosing somebody that you're comfortable with, that's in your budget, and most importantly, is authorized to represent you in your immigration application. This is a really great website to be able to do because it not only tells you all of the things you need to know about representatives, but it also tells you what they're allowed and not allowed to do. So this is a great way to protect yourself against fraud or any other kind of misuse of the immigration system by professionals. So make sure you check this out when you're doing your research. The first designation of representatives that I want to discuss are lawyers and paralegals. Both of these professionals are regulated and licensed by the Law Society of Ontario. The main differences between these two classifications of professionals is that lawyers attend much more rigorous schooling and therefore are allowed to represent you in all legal situations, where paralegals attending a shorter amount of schooling are permitted to only represent you in certain circumstances. So ensure when you're hiring a paralegal to clarify whether or not they are licensed to practice independently on your behalf. Next, I'm going to take you to the Law Society's website where there's a directory of individuals who you can rely on being licensed and eligible to take your case. So now that we're on the Law Society of Ontario's website, I want to draw your attention to the Lawyer and Paralegal Directory. So this directory lists lawyers and paralegals licensed by the Law Society, and therefore they're individuals who are eligible to represent you in your immigration case. What's great about this directory is you can take a name that you found on Google or a referral through a friend or family member, and you can type it in to determine whether or not they're licensed. So for an example, I've used the name Bob Fisher, and I've searched for somebody in the Hamilton, Ontario area. So if we search find, we're going to see that the directory comes up with no records for this search. This means that Bob Fisher was not recorded as being licensed by the Law Society of Ontario, and therefore I most likely shouldn't hire him to represent me as a legal representative. This is an extremely important step to take when hiring a representative because it's going to help you avoid fraud and potentially having complications on your application. So please ensure if you're thinking of hiring either a lawyer or paralegal, you're coming to this website and doing this step. So the next designation of individuals I want to talk to you about are immigration consultants. So immigration consultants are individuals that help people immigrate from one country to another for study, work, travel, or business purposes. They provide legal services in the area of immigration law as permitted by legislation. So this body of professionals are regulated by the Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council and are legally allowed to represent you in your application process. However, you do want to do your due diligence by ensuring that your immigration consultant is registered and in good standing. This can be done in the following link. So this takes us to the Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council's website, where they house a public register of regulated Canadian immigration consultants and regulated international student immigration advisors who are permitted to advise you on your immigration case. So much like we saw on the Law Society of Ontario, you can go into this registry and you can type in any information of an individual you're considering hiring to verify that they are admissible to represent you in front of any governmental bodies. This is a really important step because, as you can see, even right at the top here, immigration fraud is something that can happen to anybody. So we want to make sure we're gathering all of the information possible before making our decision. This takes us to our final talking point, which is avoiding fraud. So I've touched upon this briefly when discussing lawyers and paralegals and immigration consultants, but what I wanted to show you guys additionally is this video compiled by the IRCC, which just really goes over how to find out who can legally represent you and how to detect fraud in case you come across it. So I'll include this link in the handout provided for these sessions. However, I do really suggest that you go on and watch it. It's only about a minute long, but it could save you a lot of headaches down the road. So this brings us to the conclusion of the second session of applying for permanent residency in Canada. My name's Haley Cuthbertson, and I did this in association with HIPC, Hamilton's Immigration Partnership Council. If you didn't get a chance, head to the event page and watch the first video of this session. Also, keep an eye out for the handout that has all of the useful links and information discussed in this session, as well as the first one. It will also have a list of some different settlement organizations that may help you in your journey to permanent residency. Thanks so much and have a great day.